a dear friend of ours and fellow vegan, Eric Vautour, wanted to give today's land acknowledgement, and he apologizes for not being able to be here. He is Anishinaabe from the Ojibwe tribe and hails from Manitoulin Island. In his words, "It's challenging to be an Indigenous person in the 21st century, let alone in an urban setting. However, my deep connection with Mother Earth has not been diminished. In fact, it has only deepened further through more appreciation for the still moments of presence here on the land." The gathering today, Vegetative Fest 2023, is happening on the glorious land known as Taikaranto, a Mohawk word meaning the place in the water where the trees are standing. It has been a traditional land of many Indigenous nations. We are still here. These are the Mississauga of the New Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Huron-Wendat, the Haudenosaunee, the Chippewa, and the Métis. And it continues to be a home and a gathering place to various Indigenous peoples today. We believe as allies, we can back each other up in dismantling systems of oppression by creating sustainable systems of peace and harmony. Indigenous folks ask you not to stand behind them, but to stand beside them. Building real relationships and deepening them is a major key, not just amongst ourselves, but with our non-human relatives on the land as well. In my culture, there are only words that correspond to being an animate or inanimate. The rocks and the plants are alive, and the planet is considered to be our mother. We must all acknowledge that we must enter into friendship and ultimately remember that we're all family, so that we can stand side by side while we create a new healed planet and collective. So today, our planet experiences unprecedented anguish, in large part from activity of settlers. So I'm asking that you seek out experiences to deepen your relationship to Mother Nature, and as you come together to celebrate this weekend, please take care of the land you're on. Thank you so much. That was from Eric again, and we really appreciate him writing that for us. And without further ado, we're going to kick off our panel discussion. Thank you all so much for being here.
Empathy in action. Jenny just said to me, "What the hell is empathy?" and I was like, "Oh, that's a great question." Well, I think of empathy as being able to relate to other people's feelings and pain. And when I say people's, I mean human animals and non-human animals. And so this is our way of being able to say, you're all here because you feel something for all the beings on our planet, and we want to put that feeling into compassion, which is action coming from love and connection. I think it's very safe to say that most people don't like to see the suffering of animals. There's very, very few people that would love to see a dog being kicked. And I think a lot of people have a desire to do something when they see suffering on a video or they're in front of them. But when folks think of being an animal activist, many of them kind of get this idea of like standing on the street with a sign, being very angry and yelling at people. And I've heard people say, "Oh, you're an animal activist." I could never do that. So I want to talk about what those people need to know, and maybe some of those people are out there right now, what those people need to know about what it means to be an animal activist and how it looks. Jenny, can we start with you?
You know, being an animal activist can be as simple as carrying a card with you, and you pass someone on the street, they have a dog with them, and you say, "Oh, you're an animal lover," and you give them a business card. And the business card doesn't have your name on. It actually has, you know, all the details about all the organisations they can join, all the documentaries they can watch. That's the very simple version. Being an animal activist is also volunteering your time or giving your money.
Money, yes.
Exactly. You know, there's so many organisations, VegTO, all the sanctuaries in Ontario, all the campaigning organisations you can see across the way, like Animal Justice. They would love just a few dollars from you every month. Being an animal activist is volunteering your time with some of these campaigning organisations.
Anita, what do you feel like folks need to better know about being an animal activist and how that looks?
So I think you just apply your skills. So like if you're an artist, you contribute music, and we have Uday here, who sings. If you're at work, you could ask the canteen to, go plant-based or to have plant-based days. So if you're at school, you could also do that. You can start a student club. You could try to change the menu. If you're at home, you can just go on your computer and subscribe to the newsletters of these different organizations. In particular, Animal Justice Academy has a very activist-oriented newsletter. So does the Plant-Based Treaty. So it gives you simple actions you can take, like writing an email action to a corporation or city hall, or federally, like with your campaign against the ag laws that are being proposed. So those are some of the things that you can do as an activist, but then you can do the traditional sort of direct action. And an animal vigil is direct action, going to a slaughterhouse facility and bearing witness to the animals that are about to be murdered at that facility, and it's a very powerful type of action. It could be a disruption in a supermarket, like Direct Action Everywhere does. It could be a cube or We the Free, or a Save Square, holding TVs with footage in downtown areas and sort of bring the slaughterhouse footage and the animal farms to downtown areas and raising awareness. Transformed a lot of people, so that's an important type of activism. So there are so many different types of activism, from direct action to advocacy to public education.
Yeah, Anita, it's just no matter what a person's age is, or where they lived, or what their skills are. I mean, there is something for people to get active, some way for you to get active. And I love what you said about the jobs and the different roles that people can play. I always say, if you are somebody who is a project manager or a graphic designer, and you're standing outside, leafleting all your time. I mean, it's good to leaflet once in a while, stay real. But if you're spending your majority of your time when organizations and projects and initiatives badly need project managers and graphic designers and accountants or whatever it is, I'm gonna kick your butt inside, okay? So that's something to remember. What are your skills? What are your talents? What is your experience not many others might have that you can add to the movement? We were just talking about Eric Vautour, our friend, who is also a director on our Toronto Vegetarian Food Bank board, and he's Indigenous, and we have brought him in and we're like, educate us, give us some guidance, take part and, lead us in this way. And so here was Eric, who wasn't an activist, but he's an activist now. And so what is your unique experience? And as Jenny and Anita said, all these ways within your own communities. I'm a big believer, and I think you two are too, about activism starting with your own communities, okay? So seeing if you can get dairy-free options at your church, mosque, or temple coffee hour. Just, can we have soy creamer there all the time? It could be meeting with your city councilor about animal issues. It could be going to your local restaurants and just, asking if they can have more plant-based options and connecting them to programs like Forward Food, where they can get some ideas around that. So it's in so many ways, but to look to your community, whether that's schools, your neighborhood, your workplace. Anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that Gabriel wasn't able to be here, but he's running a slaughter-free network. So he wants the city to ban slaughterhouses in the city of Toronto. So that's something you can do in your own community. The idea of the animal vigils at slaughterhouses were all about community, as Kimberly said. Like, is there a slaughterhouse or a dairy farm in where you live? Well, then you should organize. You should not look away. You should go to the site and come close as you can and try to help, which is how Tolstoy defined bearing witness. And the key is to get as many people there as possible. When Toronto Pig Safe started, the idea was community organizing, and it was inspired by Gandhi and King. The idea when we're doing like 3 vigils a week at one slaughterhouse was very much like trying to engage the community. And on Labor Day, we would have veggie dog giveaways and invite people in the community, and we went door to door giving leaflets and inviting everybody. And I think that's very effective. And with respect to the plant-based treaty, we're also trying to do some community organizing. So there are 25 wards in the city of Toronto. So we're now organizing film screenings. There's a really good film called Eating Our Way to Extinction. So we're going to show that in every ward, and we're going to go to libraries, which are hubs for communities, and also community centers. So yeah, that's fundamental, organizing in your community, but at the same time you have to think globally, act locally. And so we're also going to be at COP. 10 people are going to COP to represent the plant-based treaty in the United Arab Emirates. And we're going to be presenting vegan donut economics. And it's just a concept which combines not transgressing planetary boundaries, like climate change, fresh water, biodiversity, and also incorporates social foundations like education, gender equality. And recently, the concept of planetary boundaries has introduced the concept of interspecies justice. So Rockstrom, who's the author of The Planetary Boundaries, and there was a movie called Breaking Boundaries on Netflix. He has these 9 planetary boundaries, but they just introduced the concept of interspecies justice, so we're very excited about that.
And the fact is that we live in Toronto, so we do have a slaughterhouse in Toronto at Keele and St. Clair, and every couple of weeks there is a vigil there, Try Cow Save, and join us, bear witness at the cow slaughterhouse. It's a nasty place, but I think it's really important that people experience that at least once in their lives. And then every single Wednesday you can come out to Burlington. Don't have a car, get the go, it's really handy. And then we bear witness to the pigs arriving at the slaughterhouse too. And it's distressing, but again, then you can tell people that I took this picture, I saw this, and I think it's really important when you take that interest yourself, and then your friends and family take more of an interest.
While we're on the topic of vigils, Anita, this is a very unique form of activism that, maybe it was done here and there before, but it became a thing that after you had your own sort of experience with transport trucks back in 2010, why do you think vigils are such an effective form of activism? Besides what Jenny said, which was a great point, being able to be a witness that says...
There were vigils, like you said, here and there. That in the 90s in the UK, there were vigils against live export, and as some of you may know, there was a tragic accident there with Jill in 1995. So their approach was sort of like more assertive, and it was sort of like critical of the police and the slaughterhouse. So it was a more antagonistic type relationship, and it was the style of activism in the 90s in the UK, which was important to the animal liberation movement. There was a vigil in Essex before we started Toronto Pig Safe, where there was abuse of pigs, like with cigarette butts and things like that, and there was a woman in a wheelchair that started doing regular vigils there. So when we started doing vigils, what we wanted to do was regular vigils, and really regular, like 3 times a week. And it was inspired by Mahatma Gandhi, who would do many street actions, like all the time, like in a day, he would do lots of actions. And so the idea was to stage frequent direct action in order to build a movement. And when we bore witness, we just thought everyone needs to see this. And I do think everyone has a responsibility to bear witness, as Jenny said. Some people say, I'm too sensitive. Well, I think all animal rights activists are very sensitive. And when you go to a vigil, you absorb some of the trauma that the animals are experiencing 24/7. So you just get a sliver of it, and it's traumatic, isn't it? You get PTSD. But the animals experience that from birth, to death, for most of the time. And we just feel it's something everyone should do, and that was the idea. It was also inspired by the civil rights movement, because all the genders, all classes, all occupations, got together, and there was mass participation in the Montgomery bus boycott. It was 90%, it was just the whole community boycotted the bus. It's a type of activism that is not you go into a farm, which is not something everyone will do. I mean, there's some really brave people and courageous people who are willing to risk a lot, but it was something that, a grandmother could do, children could do, and so that was the idea behind it.
It's a form of vigil, going inside. They're all private property, and they're called farms. And farms give you that impression, green fields, bucolic sky, friendly farmers, animals playing. But the reality, and I wish people would talk about this more. People talk about the slaughterhouses being awful and shut them down, but they don't talk about what's inside these places. So I've been arrested multiple times for my activism, and it's not something that people can do. And even now in Ontario, it's very difficult because we've got the Ag-Gag bill. So if I go back inside, I'll end up in jail with the peace bonds and what have you. But I think it's really important to talk about what happens inside these places. And I don't even like the term factory farm anymore, because they're all factories. You go inside. I've been inside 2 family farms, what they would call them family farms, and the families are respectable. They'd even go to schools and do school talks and bring a banner. And yet what they're hiding inside these sheds, these white sheds in the countryside, is an absolute hell. So I would ask you to look up footage from Pig Trial 2 and Pig Trial 4 of what we've seen inside these places. And what I've seen inside chicken, air quote, farms, and what I've seen at cow, air quote, farms. We had a team with Direct Action go into a farm unexpectedly, and there was a calf that was had been just covered with food and was dying basically on the ground. And yet these places, will tell you that we love our animals. Well, they love keeping them alive until they can sell them for profit.
And I have to say, just as far as vigils go, not only is it about personal experience, Anita, but we, at Animal Justice have gotten very valuable footage from your vigil folks that, you're seeing transport truck after transport truck, and those animals are not in good shape. They're either, some of them are passed out from heat or are dead from heat, some of them are frozen. And so to be able to have people on the ground collecting that footage. Another example that I'm thinking of is your restaurants in your neighborhood, going in to see, do they have vegan options on the menu, and connecting them to ideas around that, or the grocery stores, going into the grocery stores in your area and requesting that they carry certain products,
And online actions as well?
Yeah, sure. Okay. Yeah, online are great everyday actions, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the easiest things you could do is sign a petition. So I would recommend, if you're a group, to do a Drove petition so you can collect the emails and have a continuing relationship with the people who sign the petition. Because if you sign a change.org, you can't sort of develop a relationship and add people to your newsletter. And the newsletter is one of the most powerful things an organization has.
Absolutely, you're huge, much bigger than social media.
Which is counterintuitive, right? Because people think, social media is the main thing. It's great when you have viral videos. Varun's an expert at. But otherwise, it's really the newsletter and the website and YouTube. Those are the top platforms. So one of the best things you can do is sign a petition on Drove or...
There's change.org. Oh, you mean the ones that collect?
Yes.
Yeah, I think a lot of organizations sort of have their own platforms, mostly.
Yeah.
And the petitions that are the most effective to sign, custom like messages, that they're going to your MP or your MPP or your city councillor. And what makes them even more effective is when you customize them as much as possible. Even if all you do is cut most of it out and just have a couple of lines. Because if it's a form email, it's going to be sent by hopefully hundreds of people. And you want it to not go into their spam filters. So that's a little trick. Change the subject line and change the body of the email a little bit, and it makes it far more effective.
Yeah. So just on that, so yes, there's a petition, but there's the letters, as Kimberly just said. So for example, on plant-based treaty, we have an email action to the City of Toronto, and just by filling that out, you automatically send 25 councillors.
So I'm going to give out these cards. I'm going to ask for a volunteer to give out these cards to the audience. And the QR code on that card actually opens up to the plant-based treaty and allows you to send that email to councillors.
Yeah. And if you could do that when you get home, maybe not right now.
No, do it right after our talk.
Yes. So yeah, and as Kimberly said, like when you set this up on a website, you can edit the letter, and I'm not sure, even the subject line for the email actions?
It depends on your platform, but especially subject line is great. If you have a choice between the two, change the subject line.
Yeah, so that is incredibly powerful. Like, I can't even begin to tell you how powerful that is. I'll give you one quick example. Yeah, Edinburgh is one of the 21 cities that endorsed the treaty. It happened because a constituent emailed the councillors, and there was a Green councillor that said, "Oh, good idea." And we weren't campaigning in Edinburgh. It was the constituent that had made that happen. So that's the power of it. Other things you can do on the street is sticker. As Jenny mentioned, you could do activism. You could poster. Posters are really powerful. Yeah, you could. As Kimberly mentioned, if you go to, one campaign that we have is trying to get dairy milk out of like progressive cafes, and obviously it's best if they go entirely plant-based, but the second best thing is if they use plant-based by default. So there's a group called Greener by Default and Better Food Foundation, which promotes this idea, and the uptake is 40 to 80%.
Yeah, it's incredible, and they have so many resources on their website for if you are like just somebody who's got a community institution or whatever that they're trying to make a change with. They have resources for individuals to be able to make those changes.
I have another for everyday activism. A lot of times I'll be in places and I'll have a nice, pretty bag with me, and I might not have animal rights like writing on, but I can then, whip out a sign. It's not food, it's violence. This is direct action everywhere. This is fish. I mean, I have so many signs. And you can just buy from the dollar store, and you can make your own sign, and then you can take a picture of it, even a selfie. You can even buy yourself a little megaphone. And I'll resist doing something now, because I know we're on, city grounds. But then I kind of like going into supermarkets. I mean, we talk about live animals, but there's so many dead animals in a supermarket. One fun thing I find, just get yourself in an aisle where there's no one there, and then shout, "Hey, customers, welcome to the store. We have vegan options, please go vegan." And then staff don't even see you, and you can get away with it. And then you go to another aisle, and then you do the same thing. And just talk to people. Sometimes there's lobsters held in stores. Go and talk to the staff, go and talk to the managers. That's something really easy.
Yeah, and Jenny, it's not like you have always been the most outgoing, gregarious person. It's just practice, right, to get out there.
Oh, it's taken me a while, but now I can talk to people wearing fur as well, for example. A lot of people don't realise that they're wearing, a tortured animal around the neck. So I will take a card and say, "Hey, did you know what you're wearing?" So I find that it's really effective doing one-on-one conversations as well as doing group activism.
Absolutely, folks, conversations are one of the best forms of activism there are. The people in your life that respect you already, care for you. I mean, maybe not your closest family, just let them go. It depends who you are. I don't want you to spend all your time on your closest family. But like co-workers. And we'll talk about, in just a second, I want to talk a little bit more about that and kind of the energy and way to present that. But just to finish on this everyday activism piece, I just want to say a thing about language. You can do a simple thing by changing your language a little bit, and just in the way that you talk can make an impression on people, like never referring to an animal as an it. Always referring to an animal as they or she or he, if you don't know their gender, obviously they. Saying things like fishes as opposed to fish or deers. What are some other ones? Some other language things that...
You know, I tend not to make comparisons,
Mm-hmm.
so I don't want to upset huge groups of other people and other social causes. I think standing up for animals and speaking about their situation is enough. So I'm careful not to use any negative language either, and not compare it to humans.
Yeah, no one-upmanship sort of thing.
In the climate movement and in academia, you see a lot of reports that refer to livestock. So I think that's referring to animals as though they're property or it. So yeah, I do think it's always important to challenge that. And there's a book by Joan Dunyer on using the correct language. She has a glossary at the back where she says, the species is this term for something, and then she provides the animal rights version.
Absolutely. Beef are cows. Pork is pigs. And so it's subtle things like that that start to just affect those around you. I want to talk a little bit about an area that I said I'm quite passionate about, and that's politics. That's political engagement. And so a couple comments about that, and then see if you folks have any to add to it. But this is a really overlooked area, folks, is political engagement. And it sounds scary and overwhelming, and oh my God, isn't that what lobbyists do? But to just be able to go and have a meeting with your MP on Zoom, on phone, in person is obviously the best, but to have a meeting with your political rep, it's very possible your MP or your MPP or your city council, they work for you. Their job is to hear from their constituents. And the wonderful thing about this is that you don't need to be an expert, because most politicians are not experts on these topics either. You just need to have a few key things that you want to say to them. And the reason it's so effective is very little of the Canadian public has meetings with their political reps. So when they have a meeting with a political rep, when you have a meeting with a political rep and bring an issue to them, they are thinking, wow, this represents probably thousands of people in my constituency, okay? And it is also giving them the background. So let me give an example. Right now we're trying to fight the federal ag-gag law, Bill C-275, and the Animal Justice Academy community, our job is, as many AJAers as possible are meeting with their MP. We have already had so many people be successful. These are shy people. These are people that have never done politics before. And their experience is they go in and most MPs don't even know what the bill is about. So they're just doing some brief education. And the other amazing thing, and the thing to work around with politics, is that you could become a regular sort of outreach person with your political rep. And what that ends up doing is often they will find you an advisor, they'll start thinking of you as an advisor, okay? Because there's probably not a lot of people in their ear talking about animal rights or animal protection or vegan issues. And so to have a great relationship created with your political rep, which really is only a couple of meetings, then all of a sudden you've got a relationship, and all of a sudden you're in a little bit of the inner circle. You've got the ear. What's your experience has been? Any thoughts around political engagement, Jenny?
Absolutely. I had a great meeting one time, and I love that the Animal Justice Academy has actually provided a package, because I think it's really important to take along something that they can actually take away with them. I've met my MP, Bill Blair, in the past, and I took, I don't know, about 6 different campaigns to him. But I always take a picture, because I find that, you know, if they can see something visual, and then I leave it with them. Another good timely thing talking about politics, I'm going to give a plug for Nathaniel Erskine-Smith.
Yes, please. Everybody know Nate? Okay, please tell the folks about Nate, Jen.
You know, he's in the federal parliament at the moment. He's a Liberal member, and he is vegan, he's animal rights. He has made a difference.
He's helped us to get some of the first animal bills through in like 100 years in the federal parliament. So he's been amazing.
Exactly.
Okay, Anita, political engagement. I know that's been an area that you've gotten into so much with the plant-based treaty. And what have you observed about the power of political engagement?
So yeah, what we did in the UK is we first did a lot of data collection. So we got the emails and names of 20,000 councillors. And so wherever you live, if you send an email action, it goes to all your councillors. So in Manchester, they have like more than 50 or 70 or something. They have a lot of councillors. And they're often not paid positions there, so it's a different setting. So then we did data collection for the Netherlands, and we have 2 cities that are interested now in the plant-based treaty, Amsterdam and Utrecht. And even some others are also, it's on the agenda of other cities. And then we introduced it in Canada, and so far we had 1 vote in Kingston, and we lost 8-5. But we have a few councillors that started endorsing, and you get to meet these councillors that are vegan or plant-based. Like, so there's a councillor in Port Moody that we didn't know about that's plant-based that just endorsed this week. And she has a Tri-City plant-based Facebook group. So it's a way of like organizing and just finding out like who is concerned about the climate crisis. And some of them are not even vegan, like some of the support that you get. And what's interesting, it's also cross-party. Like in the case of the Edinburgh endorsement, it was the Green Party, the Labour Party, and the Scottish National Party that voted for it, and the majority of the vote. So that's our hope, is like, you know, to get Green, NDP, Liberal, even some Conservative possibly support for it. And it's just reaching out to everyone, and because the climate crisis is something that affects everyone, and I think there's more and more awareness, and that the issue, what we've observed, has a lot of traction. So when we used to do animal vigils, we did not get as much support from different community groups, like religious groups, social justice, environmental, political parties, and politicians. But with the climate crisis, it's so easy. That's what's so shocking. It's like so easy to get support. And going there, you know, the main call of the plant-based treaty is the environment. It's you know, transforming our food system to plant-based so that we live within our planetary boundaries. So it's about protecting our home for all the living beings. Then there are co-benefits like animal protection, health, you know, better work, global food justice, you know, all these other issues are co-benefits, but the main benefit is environmental. So it's so easy to talk to a politician when there's so much common ground.
Absolutely. The bulk of politicians out there aren't veg. They're not activists. They probably have a dog or a cat, and that's you know, sort of takes us into another area, which is how to effectively advocate for animals in conversations, in your messaging. And you know, one of the things that I'm a big believer in is get to know who you're talking to, ask questions, listen. Because if somebody really cares about the environment, but you're not shutting up about, you know, protein, plant protein is great, you're missing the mark. You don't have a lot of time to grab somebody. And so get to know who they are and what is meaningful to them. One of the first campaigns I ever worked on was campaign called Why Love One But Eat the Other, Subway ad campaign that we started in 2009. Thank you. And Jenny helped on that campaign way back then. And that just, I saw that get to the heart of things for people. They're like, oh my God, yeah, I love my dog or I love my cat, and I couldn't eat them, and what's the difference? So that's just one sort of thing, but there are a lot of environmentalists out there. And so really, finding that way in to grab them. It might be a matter of justice. Somebody is really concerned with equality. And so why wouldn't that extend to other species that think and love and suffer and feel? So what are some other things that are really important to you, Jenny, as far as strategies and approaches for making your advocacy really get through to people?
I think flexibility is one thing, because, in the movement we hear about, I'm an abolitionist, I just want the industry to end. But then you have a section of people called welfareists who want to improve the conditions for animals. Obviously I want it to end, but I'll also join organisations that want better conditions. And I'll be a chicken inside a cage, on the street. I'll do whatever it takes. We'll take props to the street, which might relate to people. We'll use fake blood. But then on the other scale of things, I'll be as polite as anything, and I'll have friendly conversations with Anonymous for the Voiceless. And I'll campaign with We the Free, who are amazing too. There's just so many ways that you can reach people, but listening and finding out what angle they're coming from is really important, because you've got your health vegans, you've got your animal rights, your ethical vegans, and just respect everyone who wants to adopt a vegan lifestyle or a plant-based diet, whatever they like to call it. I think that's fine.
I really like to think of it in conversations with non-veg folks, and some of you are here right now, is that everybody's a potential ally. Everybody, if they truly understand what's going on a certain level, can be an ally. And so I think we all had a period of time as activists where we came on real strong. We came in hot, right? Angry, and but realizing that was alienating people, that sometimes creating a warm, more safe space can be helpful for people. And that's not to say that activism can't look fierce and bold. Like, sometimes we do have to really get loud and we have to disrupt things. But I like to think of doing that from a place of understanding that people don't know. They're not evil, they just don't understand yet at their core what it's all about. And the moment we can find a way into that place, they will change.
And I tend to use the human angle a lot as well, because people care about social working conditions, and the places I've been inside, you wouldn't want anyone to work in those places. They're clearing up. I won't even mention what they're clearing up, but it's absolutely disgusting. So the human angle is something that I will go to a lot. But I'll also shout at demonstrations, because I struggle with this a bit, because I don't like coming across as, the angry vegan. But how is someone across the road going to hear that we're even there if we're not shouting on a megaphone?
You gotta be fierce and you gotta be loud sometimes. It's about coming from the right place, because anger is just not getting us there. It can burn us bright for a bit, but it's not enduring. It's not something that's going to have you in this movement for 20, 50 years, which is what we're going to have to be in this for, folks. Anita, what do you want to add?
So I think I would recommend books like Gandhi's books. There's 3 that are in English, his autobiography, and there's one on direct action, and one called Hind Swaraj, or Independence, and also King's books. And so what they teach is that instead of hating the people who are participating in oppression, you hate the system and you try to change the system. So I think that's very grounding to read their books, And the work that we do is very difficult, and it's very easy to be angry.
I mean, 92 billion land farmed animals killed every year. 92 billion, that's a new figure. It's gone up 22 billion. Folks, it's understandable that we would be angry and sad and want to just shake people. But the fact is that that's just not the way we're going to get through to them.
I never use figures like that. I find them too depressing. I could never use that. I always talk about the individual.
Yes. Very good, Jenny.
If you see a slab of something that someone has in their shopping basket, talk about the individual. Did they have blue eyes? Did she feel pain? That type of thing. So
that's always bringing it down to the individual. Anita, you have something to add?
Just one other thing is these numbers are so horrendous. It's because the advocacy we have to do is individual diet change, but also system change.
Yes.
And I think that's the message, because they're the biggest companies in the world, like Cargill. They, while meat, dairy, and egg consumption is going down in some countries in the West, they are advocating for expanded meat, dairy, and eggs. So countries that used to be largely plant-based, like many countries in Africa, India, China, Indonesia, now India is the capital of diabetes. So these companies, they have a goal of getting 100 million people in Asia to adopt backyard chicken operations. As we're having victories here, they're massively expanding. That's why those numbers are going up, because we're sort of thinking what's happening? It's because companies like Cargill, that's why we really need to focus on system change, policy change, as well as individual diet change.
And also, there's a lot of vegans out there who aren't activists. And we need more activists in this world, folks, even if you're just starting with the everyday activism. So you got to plug Plant-Based Treaty, but the website, Anita?
So thank you, it's plantbasedtreaty.org, and you can sign the Plant-Based Treaty on the homepage as an individual, group, business, or city.
And if somebody wants to join a vigil, how do they find out about that, besides Jenny's handy cards?
I think your website does a great job at that.
So yeah, tell us what we need to know from you, Jenny, about where to go.
Animalrightstoronto.com, we have an event calendar. Susan's working on the website, but we have a resources page, we have an anti-fur page, and we have buttons where you can send emails, and you can join all the events. And if you see an event or you want to create an event, submit it to us. I love seeing new people organize, and I will help you with signs, literature, whatever. But if you want to do something, just reach out to animalrightstoronto@gmail.com or message me on Facebook, and I'll help you.
And Kimberly, what would you like to plug? Well, all of this kind of thing that we've talked about today, folks, all these different forms of activism, are the reason that I started Animal Justice Academy 3 years ago under the Animal Justice umbrella. We have a 6-week self-paced course that takes you through every single type of activism you can imagine. Anita and Jenny are both instructors in this course. We will take you through everything from street activism, politics, media, really get you informed about all the issues so that you feel comfortable talking to people about it. And it's free. We're also a community. We are also an action collective, so we always put you to work. If you're part of the community, you're going to hear from us often with little bite-sized pieces that you can do, and that's at animaljusticeacademy.com. All right, folks, we have really loved being here, yes? Yeah, so give us a hand.